Ralph Waldo Emerson delivered an address at Dartmouth entitled Literary Ethics 8 days after he delivered the notorious Divinity School address. The students at Harvard and Dartmouth had selected Emerson as speaker at their respective commencement exercises because of a talk he delivered a year earlier, in August of 1837, as the Phi Beta Kappa orator in the meeting house of the First Parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Bliss Perry called the 1837 address Emerson's most famous speech, and he described the message as a rallying cry for the production of an indigenous American literature. We will walk on our own feet, we will work with our own hands, we will speak our own minds. A nation of men will for the first time exist because each believes himself inspired by the divine soul, which also inspires all men. The invitation to speak at Dartmouth had come to Emerson from Charles Haddock on behalf of the college's combined literary societies in May of 1838. "I am to harangue the Dartmouth College boys on the last Tuesday of July," he wrote his brother William on May 7, "and I accept the Dartmouth College invitation to speak to the boys with great delight." On May 13, he wrote in his journals that, "Last night, walking under the pleasant cloud-strewn, dim-starred sky, I sought for topics for the young men at Dartmouth, and could only think one thing, namely that the cure for bigotry and for all partiality is the recurrence to the experience that, when we don the judgment robes, let it qualify the sentence that damns my brother, that I have been him, and presently shall very naturally become him again." Although Emerson had received the invitation to deliver the address to the literary societies of Dartmouth months after he had agreed to read a sermon to the graduating class of Harvard Divinity School, he considered the two talks interrelated. Emerson intended literary ethics to elaborate the core message informing the Divinity School address, namely that self-reliance is not a theory or a speculation, but a life, not a philosophy of life, but life itself, not knowledge, but being. In the monograph Nature, Emerson had written that ethics may be called the practice of ideas or the introduction of ideas into life. Whereas the Divinity School address challenged his listeners to live the life of the Spirit, Emerson intended literary ethics to show his readers how to carry out this injunction through disciplinary practice he called literary ethics. The want of the times and the propriety of this anniversary concur to draw attention to the doctrine of literary ethics, he announced. What I have to say on that doctrine distributes itself under the topics of the resources, the subject, and the discipline of the scholar. When Emerson set out to deliver the talk in Hanover on July 21st, he had just received hostile responses to that Divinity School address. Andrews Norton, the self-appointed guardian of the Divinity School's orthodoxy, published a series of increasingly hostile attacks on what he called Emerson's virtual atheism as the latest form of infidelity that strikes directly at the root of faith in Christianity and indirectly of all religion by denying the miracles attesting the divine mission of Christ. The Christian Examiner more succinctly denounced Emerson's address as neither good divinity nor good sense. The editors of the Princeton Review wrote, "This address is before us, we have read it, and we want words with which to express our sense of the nonsense and impiety which pervade it." Emerson was still working on his manuscript when he arrived in Hanover, and it is difficult not to read the following passage as a response to his critics. A scholar, he now told his listeners, is the favorite of heaven and earth, the excellency of his country, the happiest of men. The resources of the scholar are coextensive with nature and truth, yet can never be his unless claimed by him with an equal greatness of mind. He cannot know them until he has beheld with awe the infinitude and impersonality of the intellectual power. When he has seen that it is not his nor any man's, but that it is the soul which made the world, and that it is all accessible to him, he will know that he, as its minister, may rightfully hold all things subordinate and answerable to it. A divine pilgrim in nature, all things attend his steps. After he delivered the speech, Emerson wrote his brother William, "I had a good time at Hanover." He told his wife Lydian, "Our speech is thought of better than she thinks, and I have no doubt some of it found ears in the crowd. It is very pleasant to me to see these young men. They look strong and hopeful, and college audiences are as yet uncommitted." Oliver Wendell Holmes, who had accompanied Emerson on the trip to Dartmouth, later reported that the effulgent flow of the eloquence appeared to have left the sturdy old dogmatists as dry as ever. But Thomas Carlyle called literary ethics a right brave speech, announcing in its own way, with emphasis of full conviction to all whom it may concern, that great forgotten truth: man is still a man. Do you think literary ethics merits comparison to the American Scholar and to the Divinity School Address?